In a bustling New York City restaurant where the clinking of glasses mingled with laughter and chatter, a man in a rumpled suit walked in. Looking around, he noticed people in crisp attire sipping their drinks and sharing stories. But as he approached the hostess stand, the welcoming smiles faded. "Table for one, please," he requested, trying to keep the unease from creeping into his voice. The hostess, with perfectly styled hair and a polished demeanor, gave him a quick once-over. Her eyes hinted at judgment, and with a barely concealed smirk, she replied, "I'm sorry, sir, we're fully booked right now." Disappointment washed over him. How could this be happening? The restaurant was half empty. He felt his face flush, embarrassment clawing at him. But what could he say? He nodded, turned on his heels, and walked away, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. With each step, memories flooded his mind, reminders of how far he'd fallen. Just a year ago, he had been the life of parties, the man who could command a room. But after the company downsizing, everything changed. His apartment was smaller now, and the corner office he once held was a distant dream. He wandered the streets for a while, feeling more like a ghost than a man. Each hotel lobby he passed, each upscale bar seemed to remind him of his current reality. Society often rewards the outward appearance of success, and here he was, wearing the tattered remnants of his past. Then, almost as if drawn by fate, he stopped in front of an elegant building. Its tall glass windows sparkled in the sunlight. He knew they had just announced major layoffs, and his heart sank at the thought of unfulfilled aspirations. But a strange feeling nudged him forward, urging him to step inside. Why not? What did he have to lose? The receptionist, a young woman with bright red lipstick and bright eyes, looked him up and down without much interest. She asked, her tone flat. "I'm here to speak with Mr. Hargrove," he blurted, not fully aware of his boldness. Her question dripped with skepticism. She waved him off, her attention already drifting somewhere else, but he couldn't let this go. Maybe he didn't have an appointment, but a flicker of hope ignited in him. He took a deep breath. This was his chance, however slim. "Please, just tell him it's about the layoff." "Like I said, I can't." Before she could finish, a voice cut through the tension. It was a tall man, impeccably dressed, striding through the lobby with an air of confidence that seemed to light the space. It was Mr. Hargrove himself, the CEO. His presence demanded attention, and the receptionist straightened at once, her demeanor shifting from indifferent to respectful. "Sir, this man wanted to speak with you but doesn't have an appointment," she explained. Hargrove's eyebrows knitted together. "Is that so?" His heart raced. Could this really be happening? He felt every eye in the lobby on him, the whispers, the judgment, but he forced himself to walk toward the imposing figure. "I'm sorry to intrude," he began, nerves threatening to trip over his words. I lost my job a while back, and I wanted to ask about future opportunities." Hargrove considered him for a moment, his sharp gaze piercing through. "I want a chance, just an interview." The CEO chuckled softly, but not in a cruel way. "Please," he pushed, desperation spilling out. "I know my worth. I can help increase your client base." "Enough," Hargrove interrupted firmly. "You're asking me for something that comes from building relationships, not begging for pity. If you want this, you need to earn it. Come back with a solid plan." Silence descended as the weight of his words sank in. The room pulsed with unspoken judgments, and the man turned to leave, feeling the bitterness of what could have been. "No," Hargrove's voice boomed, halting him in his tracks. "Wait, come to my office." At that moment, both surprise and hope surged within him. Maybe this wasn't a dead end after all. He nodded, swallowing hard as Hargrove motioned for him to follow. The journey took them upstairs, past elegant decor and bustling employees. As they reached the office, Hargrove gestured for him to sit. The sleek room had a panoramic view of the city, where dreams and ambition floated together like clouds. The man sat, trying to suppress the storm of emotions churning inside him. "Now tell me your story," Hargrove said, leaning back. He hesitated, gathering his thoughts, unsure of how much to reveal. But the CEO's demeanor commanded truth. "I was once on top, running campaigns and closing deals, but then I got caught in the layoffs. I faced the tough times, but I learned to adapt. I want a chance to prove myself again." Hargrove listened intently, his steel blue eyes never wavering. "I've explored freelance opportunities, trying to keep my skills sharp. I know how to think outside the box. I've had failures, but I've learned." Hargrove nodded, clearly impressed. "That's the spirit I admire. I'm not handing you a job. Instead, I want you to pitch me your vision for our next campaign. If I like what I see, we might just find a place for you here." His heart swelled with hope. Absolutely. As he left the office, something shifted within him. It wasn't just about getting a job anymore, but about reclaiming his identity, standing tall among towering giants. In the coming days, the man worked relentlessly. He spent every waking moment crafting his pitch, pouring his heart and soul into every slide. The fear of failure hung over him like a dark cloud, but he pushed through, fueled by a fierce desire for redemption. When he returned for the meeting, the air in the office buzzed with tension. Hargrove studied him as he presented ideas with passion and clarity. He outlined a plan that combined classic marketing with innovative strategies, targeting a younger audience. Every word felt like a step toward the future he longed for, and he could see Hargrove nodding in appreciation. Finished, the room fell silent. For a moment he held his breath, waiting. Hargrove leaned forward, his face a mask of contemplation. "This is bold, I like it," he finally said. "I can," he replied, steeling himself. "I fought through tougher challenges." Hargrove's gaze softened, the facade of the tough CEO cracking slightly. "All right, let's give you a shot. Welcome to Hargrove Industries." The man's heart soared, emotion threatening to spill over. He was no longer lost in the shadows of his past. He had been given a chance, not out of pity, but out of respect for the fire burning within him. In the weeks that followed, he dove in head first. He collaborated with talented individuals, harnessed his creativity, and rebuilt his confidence. Each success, no matter how small, felt like reclamation, a piece of the puzzle fitting back into place. The buzz around his campaign grew, clients noticed, sales increased. The more results he delivered, the more he transformed, becoming part of a larger dream, a community thriving on resilience and innovation. One afternoon, as he walked back into the office feeling accomplished, he spotted the hostess from the restaurant. She was visiting Hargrove about a separate matter, and the moment their eyes locked, he felt a mix of emotions. She had once looked down on him, her judgment stark. "Excuse me," he said, confident now, stepping toward her. Her smile faltered for just a moment. He could see realization dawn on her that sometimes the story goes deeper than appearances. "Maybe I misjudged you," she admitted, her voice lower now. He shrugged, a sly grin creeping onto his face. "You weren't the only one." As she walked away, he felt a surge of power within him. It wasn't just the triumph of the corporate world, but the deeper victor over self-doubt and fear. Days turned into weeks, and he hardly recognized himself. He had stepped through a door once slammed shut and found a place among giants. Hargrove's faith in him blossomed, turning into mentorship. Industry connections opened doors, and one day, while sitting in his new office with a view, he realized he was done running from his past. Instead, he had become a part of a new chapter, a story reshaped through determination, grit, and a little help from an unexpected ally. Just as Hargrove promised, it was only the beginning and ascent from the depths of struggle to the heights of success. And it all started on a fateful day, when one soul refused to be overlooked, fighting back with everything he had. He walked into the restaurant with a sense of purpose, yet it quickly crumbled as she raised an eyebrow, glancing at his worn-out shoes and rumpled jacket. She asked, her voice laced with skepticism. He nodded, a knot forming in his throat. "I'm sorry, sir, we don't have any open tables right now," she replied, her tone icy. His heart raced. This was a prestigious spot known for its exquisite cuisine and elite clientele. Of all the places he could have chosen, why did he end up here? He could feel the eyes of other guests on him, dressed in designer suits, sipping expensive wines, seemingly oblivious to his plight. "Please, just a moment," he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. The hostess's gaze hardened. She dismissed him with a wave of her hand and turned her attention towards the next waiting customer. A wave of humiliation washed over him. He turned away, retreating into the chaotic streets of Manhattan, where dreams often clashed with reality. He trudged forward, the upbeat melody around him contrasting sharply with the weight in his chest. Yes, he had a meeting. Today was supposed to be his turning point. Ever since he lost his job 5 months ago, hope had felt like a distant echo. Each day had slipped into the next, a blur of rejection emails and dwindling savings. He recalled the conversation with his girlfriend, her well-meaning words piercing his heart. And now, here he was, humbled and filled with uncertainty. As he wandered, he turned his mind back to the restaurant. The name Hargrove Industries still bounced around his brain. It was the company that had invited him for this so-called meeting, the position that could change everything. But could he even get in? He found himself standing outside Hargrove Industries, staring up at the towering building. The glass facade reflected the sky, a beautiful, inviting view that felt impossibly out of reach. For a moment he hesitated. Was it worth it? But then he recalled his girlfriend's encouraging words. Stepping forward, he opened the door and walked in. The lobby was filled with sleek design and an air of ambition. Immediately he felt the weight of the world pressing on him again. The receptionist asked, her tone polite but revealing little warmth. "I have a meeting with Mr. Hargrove," he stated, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Heart racing, frustration bubbling beneath the surface, he made one final attempt. "This is an important meeting." With his shoulders slumped, he turned back from the desk. Hope seemed like a mirage shimmering just beyond his grasp. But in that very moment, a presence cut through the tension. A tall man with a commanding presence strode confidently through the lobby. He asked, eyes sweeping across them, a frown creasing his forehead. "Yes, sir," the receptionist replied quickly, standing up straighter. The man's brow raised in surprise, and he stepped closer to the both of them. "I apologize, I was hoping to discuss the marketing position," he stammered, feeling smaller by the second. The man questioned, a spark of interest igniting in his eyes. He felt the fire in his belly rise again. "Come with me, let's talk upstairs," the man said, his voice firm but curious, beckoning him forward. As he dutifully followed, disbelief churned in his gut. He had expected to be dismissed, to head back out into the world as just another failed attempt. But this man, the CEO of Hargrove Industries, was suddenly pulling him into a reality he could barely comprehend. The office was lavish, filled with high-end furniture and framed awards lining the walls. The panoramic view showed the skyline, almost dazzling in its beauty. Hargrove settled in behind his desk and gestured for him to sit. "Now share your vision," Hargrove said, leaning forward, clearly eager to engage. At first, words evaded him. How could he condense his passion into a pitch? But as he found his voice, he spoke about the marketing trends he observed, implementing social media in ways that could target younger demographics. He talked about creativity, innovation, and breaking the mold that often trapped big companies. Hargrove listened intently, nodding occasionally. Each nod fueled his confidence. He could feel the atmosphere shift around them. It was no longer just an interview, it was a conversation, a collaboration of ideas. But then Hargrove caught him off guard. The question hung heavy in the air. He hesitated, then laid it all out: the layoffs, the shock, the fallout of living in fear. It felt like the ground beneath me just disappeared. Hargrove regarded him with an understanding that felt strangely human. "That's what I want to hear." A slight smile played on his lips. "But talk is just talk," he nodded earnestly. "I will work tirelessly, I promise." The air thickened with anticipation. Hargrove leant back, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "I like your passion. Here's the deal. I'll give you a month to craft a marketing plan, something fresh, something that makes us stand out. If I like it, we'll discuss the position further." "Deal," he said, awe tinged with determination bubbling within him. As he left the office that day, something inside had shifted. For the first time in months, hope sparkled like a distant star. He had been given a chance, a lifeline he so desperately needed. Going home that evening felt different. He kicked off his shoes and sat down at his tiny dining table, littered with remnants of his past failures. Instead of despair, he felt energy whirling inside him. He opened his notebook and wrote out ideas. The pages filled quickly. It wasn't just about getting the position anymore. It was about proving to himself that he could succeed again. Days turned into weeks, and he immersed himself in research. He crafted a plan that twisted traditional marketing with a modern, edgy flair. No more stagnant, conventional strategies. He envisioned bold concepts, campaigns that spoke instead of shouting. The morning of the presentation arrived. His heart thumped loudly as he entered the building, greeted once again by the ambitious ambience of Hargrove Industries. He could feel the weight of expectation on his shoulders, and nerves fluttered through him. "Your meeting is upstairs," the receptionist said, her tone now more neutral than dismissive. As he stepped into the conference room, he took a deep breath. Hargrove sat at the head of the table, accompanied by several senior executives. All eyes were focused on him. He felt the suffocating pressure of anticipation. "Let's see what you've got," Hargrove said, leaning back, arms crossed, mask of curiosity in place. He clicked through his slides, pouring his passion into every word. The executives shifted their attention, intrigued by his enthusiasm. He painted a vivid picture of what the future could look like if they adopted his approach. The energy in the room shifted, tension replaced by excitement. Finally, he concluded, sweat trickling down his back. "In conclusion, I believe this strategy not only reinvigorates your brand, but also attracts a new clientele." Silence followed. He felt the weight of their gazes, some skeptical, others impressed. Hargrove broke the stillness, leaning forward, eyes bright. That was refreshing. They engaged in a back-and-forth discussion, questioning nuances of his plan. But instead of feeling defensive, he embraced the challenges, explaining and revising on the spot, and for the first time he felt alive. When the meeting finished, he stood at the door, almost bouncing on his toes. Hargrove caught his eye. "I think we'll have you on board." A wave of disbelief washed over him, mixed with relief. He left feeling like he had just conquered a mountain. Weeks went by, and when the official offer came, it was more than just a job. It was a validation of who he was. He had fought through the shadows and emerged stronger, ready to take on the world once more. From that day forward, he became more than just another name in the company. He worked hard, collaborated with talented teams, and reinvigorated campaigns. With each little success, remnants of doubt fell away, replaced by a growing confidence. Looking back, he often thought of that moment, the brief exchange with the receptionist, the way she had scoffed at him, and how that moment had shifted his path. Sometimes it only takes one fleeting moment for a life to change. And on days when everything felt overwhelming, he would remember that upstairs room, sitting across from Hargrove, grappling not only with the weight of expectation, but a newfound sense of purpose. In his heart, he knew that moment had defined him, pushing him through the doubts into a future brighter than he ever imagined. Life had a way of presenting obstacles, testing resilience, and offering the unlikeliest paths to success. All he had to do was take that first step, and from there, the rest unfolded in ways he could never predict. He pushed through the heavy glass doors of the upscale restaurant, the clinking of silverware mingling with laughter and hushed conversations. As he stepped inside, the warmth enveloped him, but he felt the chill in the air the moment the hostess looked him up and down with a dismissive glance. She asked, her voice carrying a sharp edge. He straightened his back, trying to exude confidence. She paused, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the podium. "I'm sorry, but we're fully booked. You might want to try another time," she replied, her tone dripping with indifference. His heart sank. "I have an important meeting here," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. The hostess raised an eyebrow, her skepticism evident. "Without a reservation, I can't help you," she snapped, her attention already shifting to a couple who had just entered. He felt the heat of embarrassment creeping up his neck. Frustration bubbled beneath the surface. How did he end up here, treated like a ghost in the very place that was supposed to be a stepping stone in his career? This was not how his day was supposed to unfold. He turned on his heel, stepping back out into the street, the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses fading away. The world outside felt like a whirlwind. Just a year ago, he was on top of the world, a senior marketer with a comfortable salary, respected and admired. But that felt like a distant memory now. In the last few months, life had thrown every curveball it could muster. After a sudden downsizing at work, he had found himself looking for opportunities, hoping to salvage his career from the wreckage. His girlfriend had encouraged him to take chances, to put himself out there, and today was supposed to be his moment. Now it felt stolen from him. He walked for a while, aimless and lost, until he found himself standing outside the towering building of Hargrove Industries. He gazed up at the polished glass reflecting the sky, bright, clear, hopeful. Would they even let him in after being dismissed by the restaurant? Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside the sleek lobby. It was a world of polished marble floors and crisp suits bustling about. The receptionist, a woman with striking features and a sharp gaze, barely looked up from her computer. She asked, her tone suggesting she had little time for interruptions. "I'm here to meet with Mr. Hargrove," he said, nervousness creeping back in. "No appointment, no entry," she replied coldly. He could feel the hope beginning to slip away once more. "Please, it's about a job. Sir, I cannot assist you," she interrupted, her voice leaving no room for argument. Desperation clawed at him again. "But you don't understand. This meeting is important." He didn't mean to raise his voice, but the emotion surged through him. Just then, a voice cut through. The CEO, a tall man with an air of authority, approached with an intensity that drew everyone's attention. The receptionist stiffened and immediately straightened up. "This man claims he has a meeting," she said, glancing at him like he was an unwanted problem. Mr. Hargrove turned to him, studying him with piercing eyes. I'm just trying to meet with you about a marketing position," he stammered, feeling every bit of the scrutiny from the surrounding staff. Hargrove tilted his head. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause a fuss. I believe I can contribute to your team." Hargrove's expression shifted, the corners of his mouth hinting at a smirk. "You want to prove yourself? Come upstairs." Stunned, he stood there for a moment, processing the invitation. Was this really happening? He asked, almost in disbelief. The CEO turned, already heading towards the elevator. "What are you waiting for?" He hurried after him into the sleek elevator, heart racing. The air felt charged with electricity, anticipation swelling inside him. What if he messed this up? As they ascended, he could barely breathe, half in awe of the man next to him. As the doors slid open on the top floor, they stepped into a modern, open office space filled with sunlight. Hargrove led him to a conference room, far removed from the busy floor below. He noted the view, the cityscape sprawling vast and beautiful beyond the glass. "Sit down," Hargrove instructed, taking a seat at the head of the table. For a moment he hesitated, feeling the weight of expectation pressing down on him. But he knew this was the moment he had been waiting for. This was his shot. As he began to speak, he poured his heart into it. He shared ideas he had scribbled down while contemplating his life ways to connect with younger clients through social media, fresh approaches to engaging content, and strategies to break conventions that had left the company stagnant. Hargrove listened intently, nodding at times with an occasional raise of an eyebrow. It was like a dance, their conversation flowing easily. With every word, he felt the fire inside him grow stronger, igniting the passion that had felt dim for so long. But then came the inevitable question. He swallowed hard, recalling the struggles, the painful lessons learned in the face of rejection. "Because I've been on the ground floor and I understand what it takes to rise again. I know the market, I understand the trends, and I refuse to be overlooked." Hargrove's expression softened, stirring something in him. "I like your drive, but words are just words." "Absolutely. Just give me the chance," he said earnestly, desperation flickering in his voice. "I can see that fire in you, but here's the deal," Hargrove said, leaning back, arms crossed. It felt like a challenge, a chance to rise or fall. "I'll do it," he replied without hesitation. "Good, let's see what you can bring to the table in a month." He left the meeting room feeling as though he had been reborn. Hope surged through him. He didn't just have a job to prove himself anymore, he had a purpose. The days that followed were a blur of late nights and caffeine-fueled brainstorming sessions. He dissected every marketing tactic he had learned over the years, pouring his passion into transforming ideas into a solid plan. He sat at his small kitchen table, flipping through research papers, constructing charts, crafting every detail until the vision he held in his heart gleamed on paper. Then came the presentation day. The nerves took hold as he entered that polished conference room once more, the anticipated audience seated and ready for his pitch. Hargrove sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable as he gestured for him to begin. With a deep breath, he dove in. He explained the strategy, each slide revealing the layers of a revitalized marketing campaign that would reposition Hargrove Industries as a frontrunner. He painted a picture and engaging narrative that pulled everyone in. One executive interjected, "Every innovation comes with risk," he replied, "but it's about managing those risks smartly." As he spoke, he saw interest spark in Hargrove's eyes. He was no longer an outsider, but someone presenting a piece of himself, an authentic glimpse of his ambition and grit. When he wrapped it up, the room filled with silence. He stood there, heart pounding, anxiously waiting for feedback. Hargrove leaned back, crossing his arms. "You've put a lot of thought into this." He felt a flutter of joy, but before he could allow himself to celebrate, Hargrove continued, "But we need results, not just ideas." "I can and I will. This is my chance to prove it," he replied, confidence rising despite the pressure. Hargrove nodded thoughtfully, then glanced at the others around the table. "We'll discuss this further." Every moment since had felt like a challenge, a climb up a steep mountain, twisting and turning in uncertain terrain. He threw himself into his work, collaborating with skilled teams, ensuring that every aspect of his vision came to life. Weeks passed, and as the first campaign rolled out, the results were staggering. New clientele flooded in, interest surged, and for the first time he felt like he was truly part of something bigger. One day, as he left the office feeling victorious, he spotted the hostess from the restaurant, her face showing confusion as she recognized him. "I didn't realize you were there for the meeting," she stammered, taken aback. He smiled, unable to hold back a hint of pride. She lowered her gaze, embarrassment washing over her. "I guess I misjudged you," she murmured. "It happens," he said, shrugging it off. As he walked away, the warmth of hope filled him. The tumult in his life had led him here, and each step, every rejection, every struggle had shaped him into who he was now. It all started on that fateful day when he was turned away, treated like an afterthought. But in that moment of adversity, he found resilience. He had earned his place, not just because a CEO invited him upstairs, but because he had fought for his own future, reclaimed the narrative, and rewritten his story. And beyond that glimmering view from Hargrove's office, the world seemed filled with endless possibilities, proof that sometimes, refusing to be sidelined leads you not just to the table, but to the very heart of the future you want to create. He stood at the entrance of the exclusive restaurant, heart pounding against his chest. The hum of conversation buzzed around him, laughter spilling like champagne, but he felt like an outsider peering through a window. Gathering his courage, he stepped inside. The hostess said, glancing at him with a critical eye. She looked him up and down, her expression frozen in judgment. "Yes, please," he replied, forcing a smile despite the tension tightening in his throat. "I'm sorry," she said, not bothering to hide her disdain. "We're fully booked tonight." His stomach dropped. Was this really happening? The restaurant sparkled with elegance, the scent of gourmet food wafting through the air, yet he felt utterly invisible. "I have a meeting here," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Important people have reservations," she snapped, her tone dismissive. He turned away, anger flaring up inside. Who did she think she was? Yet he was fighting a losing battle. It wasn't her fault. It was the world he had fallen into since everything went downhill. Just 6 months ago, he was confidently leading marketing campaigns, but a series of layoffs had turned his life upside down. Disappointment weighed heavily on him as he stepped back onto the bustling street, where the cold wind brushed against his cheeks. He wondered if he truly belonged anywhere, but he quickly shook off the thought. He needed to keep moving. He glanced up at the sky and took a deep breath, the city alive around him, full of opportunity. His phone buzzed, a reminder of the meeting he was supposed to attend today at Hargrove Industries, a company he admired. Maybe heading straight there would salvage some of his dignity. He had to at least try. Arriving at the towering building, he hesitated. It was an imposing structure with gleaming windows that seemed to look down on him, mocking his current state. Pushed through the revolving door, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Inside, the lobby was sleek and modern, with polished marble floors reflecting the overhead lights. As he approached the reception desk, the same feeling of anxiety washed over him. This time, a woman with striking red hair glanced up, her eyes sizing him like a contestant on a game show. She asked, her tone curt but professional. "I'm here to meet with Mr. Hargrove," he replied, attempting to sound more confident than he felt. "No," he admitted, feeling smaller by the second. Without pausing, she shook her head. Panic rushed through him. This was not how he envisioned his day going. "Please just tell him I'm here. I know he'd want to hear me out." Her expression hardened. As he stood there, the silence enveloping him, something in him snapped. "Look," he said, frustration boiling over. "I know I'm not dressed in a suit or anything, but I used to run successful campaigns." The receptionist regarded him for a moment, her expression unfazed, but just as he was about to turn away in defeat, a tall figure approached them. The voice was deep and authoritative. Mr. Hargrove himself stood before him, exuding an air of command. The receptionist straightened at once, almost as if they were soldiers at attention. "This man is requesting a meeting without an appointment, sir," she explained. Hargrove's gaze flicked to him, and to his surprise, a spark of interest ignited in those sharp blue eyes. "I'm just trying to discuss the marketing position with you," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Hargrove studied him for a moment before nodding. "Come with me," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. A rush of disbelief washed over him. He followed Hargrove through the posh lobby, every step sending shockwaves of anxiety and excitement through him. They entered an elevator and the ride felt eternal. "Let's see what you've got," Hargrove said as they arrived on the top floor. He led him into a spacious office, sunlight spilling through large windows, illuminating meticulously arranged furniture and gleaming awards lining the walls. "Take a seat," Hargrove instructed, and he did, feeling a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. "Now tell me about yourself," Hargrove said, his expression shifting from stern to intrigued. Gathering his thoughts, he dived in. "I was with Elite Marketing for 5 years. I led several successful campaigns, but when the layoffs happened, it was a shock." Hargrove nodded, intrigued. "This is a company that's known for innovation. I believe I can help transform your marketing strategy and bring fresh ideas that resonate with younger clients." Hargrove challenged, arching an eyebrow. "I've been working freelance for the last few months, keeping my skills sharp," he replied passionately. "I've learned how to navigate challenges and identify growth opportunities." For a moment, Hargrove remained silent, weighing his words carefully. "I like your enthusiasm," he finally said, considering him. "Here's the deal. I want you to prepare a marketing plan, show me your strategy in detail." Relief washed over him like a tidal wave mixed with excitement. "Absolutely." As he left the office, adrenaline coursed through his veins. He had not only stepped into a room with the CEO, but had also been given a chance to prove himself. A fire ignited inside him. This was the break he desperately needed. Days turned into a blur of vision, passion, and hard work. He spent late nights researching trends, brainstorming innovative ideas, and crafting a detailed marketing strategy, pouring all of his energy into creating something extraordinary. He transformed his small apartment into a war room, filled with sticky notes, charts, and crumpled papers, each scribble revealing pieces of his vision. Friends offered support, and his girlfriend cheered him on, reminding him that this was his moment to shine. The day of the presentation arrived, and he felt butterflies swirling in his stomach. Standing at the entrance of the conference room, he took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. As he walked in, several executives were already seated, including Hargrove. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation. He set up his laptop, heart racing as he prepared to share his ideas. "Let's hear what you've prepared," Hargrove said, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, unwavering gaze fixed on him. With a deep breath, he dove into his presentation, explaining how they could cultivate a fresh brand identity that spoke to younger audiences. He highlighted strategies involving social media campaigns, strategic partnerships, and innovative content creation. As he spoke, he could see the interest growing in the room. Executives nodded, some leaned in closer, engaged. Hargrove's expression shifted from skepticism to intrigue, and he knew he was making an impact. "Risk management is also key," he continued, addressing a question from one of the executives. The back and forth was exhilarating. Questions flowed, and he welcomed each one, relishing the challenge, defending his ideas while adapting to critiques. It felt alive, like a dance of creativity and business acumen. When he concluded, silence fell over the room, every eye fixed on Hargrove. He could feel the tension like a taut string. "Was it enough? I'm impressed," Hargrove finally said, a light smile breaking through. "You've put a lot of thought into this." Tension lifted from the room, and he let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Thank you," he responded, feeling pride swell inside him. "But now," Hargrove continued, "you need to prove that you can execute this plan." "I won't disappoint you," he promised. Weeks passed, and he fully immersed himself in the role. Every day brought new challenges, new goals, and he thrived in the fast-paced environment. He collaborated with talented colleagues, and the sense of camaraderie filled him with purpose. Initially, he had feared the judgment of others, the receptionist, the hostess, but he quickly learned that he belonged. Each day was a step forward, bringing him closer to his dreams. Through triumphs and setbacks, he embraced the process, pushing himself harder. The campaign launched with remarkable success, and metrics soared beyond expectations. The company gained traction in ways they hadn't seen in years. Then came the day he strolled through the lobby, now filled with familiarity. He caught a glimpse of the hostess from the restaurant, looking flustered, with guests circling around her like a swarm. She glanced up, recognition blooming in her eyes. She exclaimed, her voice full of surprise. He smiled confidently. "Yep, it's me." His earlier embarrassment had turned into a badge of honor. Her cheeks turned pink as she realized the truth. "It's a lesson we can all learn," he replied. As he walked away, he felt a surge of empowerment. Life had tested him, but he had risen through the struggle and emerged stronger than ever. He had reclaimed his narrative and built a future full of promise. Years that followed, he continued to rise within the company, landing even greater victories and shaping a lasting legacy. Whenever he recalled his journey from the initial rejection to being welcomed upstairs, he felt the weight of resilience woven into every step he took. Sometimes the world can throw you obstacles, but it's those moments of rejection that fuel our determination. Being turned away only lit a fire in him, driving him to take every chance and turn adversity into opportunity. It all started when she refused to seat him, a moment that, instead of breaking him, led to a world of possibility. And as he moved forward, he knew one thing above all else. With enough grit and heart, you can transform your life against all odds, proving to yourself that success is not just a destination, but a journey of resilience and tenacity. He stepped inside the opulent restaurant, a world of polished marble and bright chandeliers, where conversations flowed like the fine wine being poured at each table. But as the hostess looked him up and down, the warmth of the establishment faded quickly. She asked, her voice laced with skepticism. "Yes, please," he replied, trying to sound confident, though his heart raced. "I'm sorry," she said, barely concealing her disdain. "We're completely booked for the evening." His stomach dropped. "So much for his plans. I have a meeting here," he insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. With Mr. She glanced at him, studying his less-than-polished outfit, a simple button-down and slacks that had seen better days. "Without a reservation, I can't help you," she said flatly, turning her attention to the next guest. Frustration bubbled inside him. He couldn't believe this was happening. Just last week he had envisioned this moment, walking through the restaurant, feeling like he belonged, ready to impress the CEO of Hargrove Industries, a chance to change his life. And now here he was, met with rejection. Defeated, he turned to leave, the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses growing fainter behind him. He pushed through the doors and stepped into the bustling city, the cold air a harsh contrast against the warmth he had just experienced. What was this life he was living? 2 months ago he had been leading a marketing team, successful and respected. Now he was struggling to find his footing in a world that seemed to have no place for him. As he walked aimlessly down the street, his thoughts raced back to that morning when he had received the interview invitation. This could be it, his friend had said. But now he felt that hope slipping away like sand through his fingers. He wandered for a while, trying to shake off the disappointment. Then, almost on instinct, he found himself standing in front of the sleek Hargrove Industries building, its immense glass facade reflecting the blue sky overhead. Would they even let him in after being dismissed at the restaurant? With a determined breath, he pushed through the revolving door, stepping into a world that buzzed with ambition. The reception area was filled with smartly dressed professionals moving with purpose. He approached the front desk, heart pounding. The receptionist asked, her tone cool, eyes scanning him with thinly veiled judgment. "I'm here to meet with Mr. Hargrove," he stated, trying to project confidence. She quizzed, her brow raised. "No," he admitted, feeling vulnerable, "but I believe he would want to see me." Panic surged through him again. "I really need this meeting." He stood there for a moment, a mix of frustration and desperation causing his hands to tremble. This had to be his moment, the break he desperately needed. Just then, a voice interrupted. "Mr. Hargrove himself strode into the lobby, tall and imposing, surrounded by an aura of authority. The receptionist stiffened, her demeanor shifting completely as she straightened up at the sight of her boss. "This man claims he wants to discuss a marketing position," she said, flicking her gaze toward him as if he were the inconvenience. Hargrove turned his full attention to him, eyebrows raised in curiosity. "I'm just someone looking for a chance," he managed, his voice gaining strength. The CEO studied him, and in that moment something clicked. Hargrove seemed intrigued, perhaps even impressed by the undeterred spirit he managed to convey despite his tattered appearance. "Come with me," Hargrove said, motioning toward the elevator. He felt disbelief wash over him. Was this really happening? He hurried after the CEO, feeling a rush of adrenaline. The elevator doors closed, and it felt like every second ticked by endlessly. As they ascended, anxiety twisted in his gut. What would happen when they reached the top? What if he floundered? He was just a guy who had recently been kicked to the curb. But as the door slid open, he followed Hargrove into an office adorned with accolades, plaques, awards, and photographs of recent successes. "Take a seat," Hargrove instructed, settling into a plush chair. The man sat down slowly, absorbing the sheer power of the space. The view overlooking the city skyline was breathtaking. "Now tell me what you can offer," Hargrove said, leaning forward with interest. He took a deep breath, grounding himself. "I've spent years in marketing, working with teams to create campaigns that resonate with consumers. I know the industry inside and out, from social media trends to analytics." Hargrove nodded, his expression shifting from skepticism to intrigue. "I've worked on projects that increased brand awareness and engagement, especially among younger demographics." Hargrove raised an eyebrow. "I've been through the ringer," he replied, passion igniting in his voice. "I've learned from failure, and I'm sparking with new ideas. The world is changing fast, and I refuse to let your company fall behind." After a moment of consideration, Hargrove leaned back, arms crossed. "That's what I like to hear, but talk is cheap." "I understand," he replied, feeling the weight of expectations settle on him. "Just give me a chance." "Here's the deal," Hargrove continued, a grin tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I want you to put together a marketing strategy that outlines how you would approach our next big campaign." "Absolutely, I won't disappoint you," he said, relieved and invigorated. As he left Hargrove's office, a surge of hope washed over him. This was his moment. He had been granted the doorway to a potential future, and he was determined to seize it. Over the next few weeks, he dedicated every ounce of energy to crafting his proposal. He He spent late nights at his small apartment, surrounded by sticky notes and charts. The world outside faded as he honed his ideas, pouring passion into every word. His girlfriend often checked in, offering words of encouragement and support. "You've got this." On presentation day, he arrived at Hargrove Industries with a mix of excitement and anxiety. This was it, the moment he had worked tirelessly for. As he entered the conference room filled with executives, he felt the rush of anticipation. Hargrove sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. "Let's see what you've got," Hargrove said, nodding for him to begin. He introduced his marketing strategy, explaining each detail with fervor. He highlighted how they could leverage fresh social media campaigns, create engaging content, and revitalize the brand's identity. He could feel the energy in the room shift. Executives were leaning in, taking notes, sparking conversations among themselves. Then came the questions. Each inquiry felt like an obstacle, but instead of faltering, he tackled them head-on, showcasing his depth of knowledge and adaptability. He vibed off their curiosity, delighted to defend his vision. "There's a risk," one executive piped up. "That's a valid point," he replied confidently. Their conversation flowed, a lively exchange of ideas painting a vivid picture of what could be. It was exhilarating. As the presentation wound down, he left the room feeling lighter than air. Hargrove's piercing gaze held a flicker of approval, and he sensed that he had made an impact. After a tense moment of silence, Hargrove spoke. "Impressive work," he said, a smile breaking the professional facade. "You've shown resilience and adaptability, which is exactly what we're looking for." "I will," he vowed, a burning determination igniting within him. Weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, he threw himself into the work. The campaign launched, and the initial results surpassed all expectations. New customers flooded in, engagement skyrocketed, and team spirit soared. He had not only reclaimed his place in the marketing world, but had carved out a newfound identity. Life blossomed in the office, and he became an integral part of the team. And through it all, he never forgot that day at the restaurant, where judgment could have placed him in the shadows. Instead, he turned rejection into opportunity and transformed his life completely. One afternoon, while celebrating a successful campaign launch with colleagues, he caught the receptionist from Hargrove Industries leaning against the wall, watching the festivities. As their eyes met, recognition dawned. "Hey," she exclaimed, surprised. He grinned, confidence radiating from him. "Yep, it's me." Her face flushed as she realized the truth. "I'm sorry for judging you before," she said, sincerity clear in her eyes. "It's all good," he replied, waving her off. "We all have our moments." As he walked back into the heart of the celebration, he felt empowered and proud. This was the path he had fought for. With each twist and turn, he had reclaimed not just his career, but also his sense of self-worth. Sometimes it takes one moment of rejection, a challenge to ignite the fire within us. Life's greatest victories often rise from the ashes of our struggles. And now, as he looked around at the smiling faces of people who had come to believe in him, he knew he was no longer just searching for himself. He had become someone who could uplift others, someone who had turned the tables on doubt and transformed his life. With the past behind him and a bright future ahead, he stepped boldly into the next chapter, ready for whatever came next. Because he learned that when the world pushes you down, it's not about how many times you fall, but how fiercely you rise, reclaiming your narrative and fighting for your dreams. He walked into the elegant restaurant, its dim lighting adding a touch of sophistication that made everything feel alive. Laughter bubbled in the air, accompanied by the clinking of glasses and the soft hum of conversation. A symphony of life that felt like a world apart from the one he had recently come to know. With dreams in his pocket and a heart full of hope, he stepped up to the hostess. "Table for one, please," he said, forcing a smile to mask his nerves. The hostess's gaze moved slowly over him, lingering on his slightly wrinkled button-down and scuffed shoes. Her expression shifted from polite to cold almost instantly. "I'm sorry, sir, we're completely booked right now." His heart sank, disappointment crashing over him like a wave. "I have a meeting with Mr. Hargrove. It's supposed to be very important," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Without a reservation, I can't help you," she replied, her tone final as she turned her attention to the next customer. "Wait," he said, almost stumbling over his words. "Could you just pass along my name to him?" But her eyes were already glazed over, focused on the couple being ushered in behind him. Defeated, he stepped away, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. Outside, the air was heavy with the city's energy, but he felt more like a ghost floating among the bustling crowd. Just 6 months ago, he had been leading high-stakes meetings, thriving in a corporate world filled with prestige. But after the layoffs, he had become a shadow of his former self, wandering from one disappointment to another. He began walking, each step echoing the turmoil swirling within him. He thought about that job, the job where he could reclaim his worth, where he could show that he still had something to offer. But now that felt like a distant dream. Then he found himself standing in front of the mighty Hargrove Industries building, its gleaming facade towering above him. The possibility of walking through those doors surged through him, stitching up the rips in his confidence. Taking a deep breath, he pushed inside, each footstep feeling heavier than the last. The lobby was a world of sharp suits, polished shoes, and focused faces. He approached the reception desk. The same woman's piercing eyes met him. She asked, her voice lacking warmth. "I'm here to see Mr. Hargrove," he said, his voice steadying slightly. He hesitated. "No, but then please step aside," she replied, turning away like he was already forgotten. Feel the frustration boiling inside of him. "Listen, this meeting is important. Sir, without an appointment, you need to leave," she interrupted, her tone clipped. Just as he felt himself wanting to turn away, something shifted in the atmosphere. A tall figure strode forward, the sharp lines of his suit exuding authority. "Mr. Hargrove?" asked, his voice deep and commanding. The receptionist gestured toward him. Hargrove's gaze landed on him, and suddenly the world seemed to pause. "I'm just someone looking for a chance," he stammered, feeling an odd cocktail of fear and determination. "I know I can help your company." Hargrove studied him for a long moment. Maybe it was the fire behind his eyes, or maybe it was the desperate sincerity in his voice, but something seemed to flicker in the CEO's expression. "Come with me," Hargrove said, turning on his heel and walking toward the elevator. Heart racing, he hurried behind the CEO, disbelief swimming in his eyes. Was this really happening? As they stepped into the elevator, silence fell, broken only by the soft ding of the ascending floors. Each level felt like a leap toward his future, and the air pulsed with potential. When the doors opened, they entered a sleek office filled with natural light and well-organized chaos. "Take a seat," Hargrove said, waving toward a chair at his expansive desk. He sat down, absorbing the grandeur of the space, the panoramic view of the city lighting up in the distance. "Now tell me what you've got," Hargrove prompted, narrowing his eyes. His mind raced. "I've spent years in marketing," he began, the words spilling out of him. "I understand what it means to connect with customers. Your company is incredible, but I can see ways to enhance engagement and reach new demographics." Hargrove leaned back, evaluating him. "That's a bold claim." "Because I'm hungry," he replied, the fire rekindling in his gut. "I've been knocked down, but I refuse to be kept down. I've learned resilience, I've learned creativity in crisis." For a moment, Hargrove's stoic facade softened, revealing a hint of curiosity. "All right, here's what I want you to do. Put together a marketing proposal for our next campaign," he exclaimed, relief flooding through him like light breaking through the clouds. As he left the office, the adrenaline coursed through his veins. The world felt lighter, hope flickered within him once more. This was his chance to prove himself, a chance to reclaim the life he had lost. In the following days, he dove into his research and brainstorming, fueled by caffeine and a burning passion. His apartment became a workshop of ideas, covered in sticky notes and scribbled plans, each phrase a step toward building his vision. He reflected on how every rejection, every setback had shaped him into who he was now, a fighter. He spent late nights and endless hours crafting a marketing strategy that combined innovative approaches with tried-and-true methods. The day of the presentation arrived, and he felt a cocktail of excitement and nerves whirl in his stomach as he entered the conference room filled with executives. Hargrove sat at the head of the table, arms crossed and expression unreadable. "Let's see what you've got," Hargrove said, and in that moment the world shrank down to just him and the pitch he had rehearsed countless times. He began pouring his heart and soul into the strategy he had built. He mapped out how they could engage with younger audiences through social media campaigns. He talked about revitalizing their brand identity and how to strategically harness the current trends. As he spoke, he noticed the executives leaning in, expressions shifting from skepticism to intrigue. They asked questions, testing him, and for each inquiry he responded with confidence and clarity. This was no longer just about landing a job, it was about building a narrative that showcased his resilience, his creativity. Finally, he concluded, each word hanging in the air. Silence hung between them like a taut string. "Well, I must say I'm impressed," Hargrove said, breaking the silence. "You've shown promise, but ideas alone aren't enough." "I will," he said earnestly. As the weeks turned into months, the campaign launched, and excitement filled the office. He worked tirelessly, putting his all into every detail, collaborating with his team and inspiring them with his vision. When the metrics came in, a staggering increase in engagement and new clients, it felt like validation, a testament to his hard work and persistence. His colleagues began to see him as more than just a newcomer, but as a valuable contributor, a spark of innovation. Through it all, he often thought back to that day at the restaurant, to the hostess who had dismissed him so easily. It was a reminder of how far he had come and how fleeting moments of judgment could turn into opportunities for resilience and growth. One day, as he walked through the bustling lobby, he spotted the receptionist who had turned him away. She was caught up in a sea of people, but when their eyes met, her surprised expression spoke volumes. She said, her eyes widening. "Yes," he replied, a grin breaking across his face. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry for not seeing you then." "It happens," he said, waving it off. As he walked away, he felt empowered. Every hurdle he faced only fueled his drive. Life had a way of challenging us, but it also provided the opportunities to rise and reclaim what we sought. Now, as he watched his plans come to fruition, he knew that the rejection he had faced had changed him. He had been given a second chance, a doorway into a brighter future, and he was determined to make the most of it. In the years that followed, he thrived at Hargrove Industries, tackling bigger projects and rising through the ranks. He built a reputation not just as a marketer, but as a leader, a symbol of resilience. And every time he walked past that restaurant or the towering Hargrove office, he smiled, remembering the challenges that had once felt insurmountable. Because now he knew that even when the world seemed to push you aside, it sometimes just meant you had to find a new path, or even a new door, one that could lead to exceptional opportunities. Sometimes one small moment of rejection can carve out the space for a life-changing journey, and he was ready for every single moment that came his way, because he had learned that perseverance and passion could rewrite a story and transform dreams into reality. He took a deep breath and pushed through the sliding glass door of the upscale restaurant, instantly enveloped by the warm, inviting atmosphere. Soft lights dimmed the edges of the world outside, filling the space with a cozy glow, while the scent of gourmet food wafted around him. It was a magical place where business deals were made and lives transformed. As he approached the hostess stand, he imagined how this meeting might revive his stagnant career. The past year had been a roller coaster of loss and uncertainty. He had been fired from his last job in marketing after the company downsized. Now he was here, ready to seize a fresh opportunity. The hostess inquired, breaking into his hopeful thoughts. "Yes, please," he replied, striving for confidence, though he felt anxiety creeping in at the edges. The hostess's gaze scanned him dismissively, lingering on his worn shoes and slightly wrinkled shirt. "I'm sorry, but we don't have any tables available at the moment." His heart sank. "But I have a meeting with Mr. Hargrove. It's very important," he insisted, desperation bubbling in his voice. She barely blinked. "Without a reservation, I really can't help you." Feeling a mix of embarrassment and rage, he turned on his heel and exited the restaurant. As soon as he stepped back into the bustling street, a chill swept through him. He had come so far, prepared himself for this chance, only to be met with indifference. He wandered aimlessly for a while, the city's hustle and bustle contrasting sharply with the turmoil inside him. Just 6 months ago, he'd been someone in demand, a rising star in his field. Now he felt like a ghost, lost and overlooked. He found himself standing in front of Hargrove Industries, a glass tower that shimmered in the afternoon sun. There it was, his meeting invitation balanced perfectly against the weight of rejection. Could he even muster the courage to go inside after that blow at the restaurant? With a determination building inside him, he forced himself through the entrance. The lobby was sleek, filled with well-dressed professionals scurrying busily, each person seemingly on a mission. He approached the receptionist, desperation clawing at him again. She asked, her tone frosty, eyes flicking briefly to his clothes before returning to her computer screen. "I have a meeting with Mr. Hargrove," he stated, trying desperately to project poise. Her tone was firm, filled with finality. An uneasy feeling washed over him. "But I'm here to discuss the marketing position." "Sir, without an appointment, I simply cannot assist you," she replied, as if he were wasting her time. His frustration mounted. "Please, I really need this meeting." "You need to leave the lobby if you don't have an appointment," she said coldly. Feeling the heat of humiliation creeping up his neck, he turned away. Each step felt heavy, disappointment coiling in his gut. He couldn't shake the feeling of being invisible. Then, unexpectedly, he heard a commanding voice. Mr. Hargrove himself approached, a tall man with an air of authority that seemed to still the crowd around them. The receptionist straightened up, almost instinctively. "This man is attempting to meet you without an appointment," she said, her tone clipped. The CEO directed his gaze toward him, assessing him as if he were a puzzle to be solved. "I am here to discuss the marketing position," he managed, adrenaline pumping through him. Mr. Hargrove considered him for a moment, silence stretching between them. Then, unexpectedly, a flicker of interest appeared in those sharp eyes. "Come with me," he said. Stunned, he fell into step behind the CEO, disbelief mingling with excitement. The ride up in the elevator felt like an eternity, his pulse racing as they ascended. Every inch higher felt like a leap into a new future. They entered a spacious office with a view that overlooked the city, the skyline shimmering in the distance. It felt surreal. Hargrove motioned for him to sit, and he finally took a seat, absorbing the lavish surroundings that spoke of success and power. "Now tell me what you've got," Hargrove said, leaning forward with a seriously intense gaze. Gathering his thoughts, he began to share his vision, outlining innovative marketing strategies he believed could rejuvenate the company. His voice gained strength as he spoke about potential social media campaigns, targeted outreach, and ways to capture the attention of younger audiences. Hargrove listened intently, nodding occasionally. Each nod fueled his confidence, allowing the passion within him to pour out. He felt alive as he detailed how he could contribute and help reinvigorate the company's image. But then came the daunting question. "I've faced challenges and I've learned to adapt," he replied, determination steadying his voice. "The world keeps changing and I refuse to stand still." Hargrove leaned back, the air thick with tension. "That's the spirit I like to see, but talk is cheap. I need results. I want you to put together a full marketing proposal for my review." A sense of relief washed over him, coupled with an exhilarating rush. Absolutely. As he left the office, his heart raced with optimism. This was the moment he had envisioned countless times during sleepless nights. The world felt different now, open and full of possibilities. Days and nights blurred together as he immersed himself in crafting his proposal. Ideas flowed like a river, fueled by caffeine and fire. His apartment transformed into a chaotic workspace, highlighters marking important notes on the walls, papers strewn about like stars in a galaxy of thoughts. He consulted books, articles, and even reached out to old contacts for wisdom. Each detail mattered, and he was determined to get it right. He often told himself that a setback is just a setup for a comeback. That burning belief was his compass, guiding him through late nights and early mornings. The date of the presentation arrived, and his breath caught as he walked into the conference room. A mixture of excitement and nerves clutched at him. The room was filled with executives, a panel of judges waiting to hear his pitch. Hargrove sat at the head of the table, arms crossed, his eyes focused like lasers. "Let's see what you've prepared," Hargrove said, signaling for him to begin. He launched into his pitch, detailing each component of his marketing strategy. The tension began to dissolve as he conveyed his ideas with vigor. The energy in the room shifted, eyes focused on him, heads nodded in understanding. One executive queried, curious about the process. "Absolutely, I plan to implement analytics and track engagement metrics closely," he replied confidently. The questions flowed, but instead of feeling overwhelmed, he felt energized. Each question was an opportunity to showcase his knowledge, his background, and how he wasn't just spouting ideas but delivering actionable strategies. When he finished, he held his breath. The room fell silent. Tension coiled tightly, wrapping around him like a blanket. Hargrove broke the silence first. "You've put a lot of thought into this," he said, a hint of a smile creeping onto his face. Relief washed over him as the executives began murmuring amongst themselves, clearly intrigued by the ideas he presented. "I can and I will," he replied, full of conviction. Weeks wore on, filled with hard work and collaboration. The campaign launched, and results began to flow in: new customers, increased engagement, buzz that rippled through the industry. He worked day and night, fueled by a purpose that felt reborn. And as each metric climbed, every win felt like reclaiming a piece of himself that had been lost. His colleagues began to view him not just as a newcomer, but as a vital part of the team. Then came the day he found himself passing the very restaurant where he had faced rejection just weeks prior. Inside, he spotted the same hostess, now serving another group of elegantly dressed patrons. Memories flooded back, the sting of dismissal, the feeling of being overlooked. He stepped inside, feeling the thrill of nostalgia mixed with triumph. She noticed him and her eyes widened, recognition dawning. She exclaimed, taken aback. "Yep," he said, a smile spreading across his face. "Wow, I'm sorry for not recognizing your potential then. I thought..." "It's all right," he interrupted gently. Everyone has moments like that. He walked away, a sense of pride swelling inside him. He had turned rejection into motivation. Every challenge had led him here, showcasing his resilience. As months passed and he thrived at Hargrove Industries, he often reflected on how life had changed in such a short time. The hurdles he once faced now felt like stepping stones, vaulting him toward a promising future. He embraced every project, collaborating with talented teams, and each success felt like a victory lap. As he established himself, he became a beacon of optimism within the company. One day, as he walked through the office, a sense of fulfillment washed over him. He had faced the shadows of uncertainty and emerged stronger. He was no longer just the man who had been turned away. He was a force of innovation and resilience. Success is often born from adversity. Every rejection is a prelude to the next chance, a reminder that sometimes it only takes one person to believe in you to change your entire trajectory. Looking forward, he knew this was only the beginning. In the tapestry of life, every thread mattered, and in the narrative of his journey, he had reclaimed his story, transforming dreams into reality. He was ready for whatever came next, standing tall and proud, embodying the spirit of perseverance every step of the way. He stepped into the elegant restaurant, immediately struck by the atmosphere, soft jazz floating through the air, candles flickering on glossy tables, and conversations echoing like a melody of ambition and success. But amid the sophistication, an edge of uncertainty gripped him as he approached the hostess stand. She asked, her eyes scanning him like a hawk. "Yes, please," he said, forcing a smile, an effort to mask the nervousness brewing inside. The hostess paused, her brow furrowing slightly as she gave him a once-over. "I'm sorry, but we're fully booked at the moment." His heart sank. The rejection struck hard, sending waves of disappointment crashing over him. "I have a meeting with Mr. Hargrove," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Without a reservation, I can't help you," she replied, waving her hand dismissively as she turned to help another guest. He felt like the walls were closing in. This was supposed to be his moment, a chance to reclaim his career after the whirlwind of layoffs that had left him jobless and adrift. But here he was, sent away like he was invisible, a nobody in an exclusive space filled with movers and shakers. Turning away, he stepped back onto the bustling streets of New York City, where the chaos and noise felt suffocating. Each honk of a car seemed to mock his predicament. Desperation clawed at him. He had worked too hard to let a single moment of rejection define him. As he paced the sidewalk, memories from his recent past flooded his mind. Just a year ago, he had been thriving, a respected marketer with a promising career. But the sudden company downsizing had left him shattered, struggling to find a foothold in a world that seemed to be keeping him at bay. He walked aimlessly, the rhythm of the city pulsing around him, until he found himself standing before Hargrove Industries, a towering symbol of success. The office building looming before him reflected the bright blue sky, yet felt impossibly out of reach. Could he step inside and face whatever awaited him? He took a deep breath and walked through the glass doors, determination pushing him forward. The lobby was filled with sleek design and busy professionals moving with purpose. As he approached the reception desk, his heart raced. "I'm here to see Mr. Hargrove," he said, the words tumbling out, almost swallowed by the buzz of the room. The receptionist asked, her voice smooth yet devoid of warmth. "No, but then I can't assist you," she stated flatly, already shifting her focus to the next visitor. Frustration boiled beneath the surface. "Sir, without an appointment I cannot grant you access," she replied, her tone as final as a door slamming shut. Feeling the humiliation of rejection weighing him down, he turned to leave, his shoulders slumped. Was this his life now, a cycle of failure and disappointment? But as he made his way back to the exit, something inside him shifted. "Excuse me," a deep voice interrupted him. Turning around, he found himself face to face with Mr. Hargrove, CEO of the company he had been dreaming of working for. Tall and imposing, Hargrove's presence commanded attention. The receptionist stiffened, her professional mask losing its luster. "This man is requesting a meeting without an appointment, sir," she explained, shifting uncomfortably. Hargrove's gaze shifted to him, an assessing look in his eyes. "I am here about the marketing position," he stammered, a surge of uncertainty threatening to overwhelm him. Hargrove seemed to consider him for a moment, his brow furrowing slightly. "No," he replied, finding a spark of conviction, "but I believe I can contribute to your company in a meaningful way." Hargrove's expression softened for just a moment, revealing a flicker of curiosity. "Yes," he replied, heart pounding. Hargrove glanced toward the receptionist again. "Take him upstairs," he commanded, then turned on his heel, moving toward the elevator. Stunned, he hurried after Hargrove, feeling both fear and exhilaration surge within him. Was this really happening? Was he about to step into a world that had felt so far out of reach moments before? As they ascended, the elevator hummed softly, the silence thick and electric. The floors ticked by, and he felt the weight of possibility bearing down upon him. The doors opened to reveal a sprawling office with large windows that framed a breathtaking view of the city. Hargrove led him to a conference room filled with modern furnishings, a stark contrast to the chaos of the streets below. "Sit down," Hargrove instructed, taking his own seat across the table. His heart pounded as he settled into the chair. Here he was, sitting in front of the CEO of Hargrove Industries, a titan of business. "Now tell me what makes you think you can help us," Hargrove said, his gaze intense. Taking a deep breath, he launched into his pitch. He spoke about dynamic marketing strategies, emphasizing innovative techniques that could resonate with younger audiences. The words flowed with a newfound confidence, fueled by determination and the thrill of this unexpected opportunity. Hargrove listened intently, nodding, a flicker of interest appearing on his otherwise stoic face. With each detail he shared, he felt the energy in the room shift. It was electric and exhilarating dance of ideas filling the air. But then Hargrove interrupted. "You know, talk is cheap." "I can," he insisted, feeling the fire burning in his chest. "I've faced setbacks and I've learned how to fight back." Hargrove leaned back, scrutinizing him through steely eyes. "Here's the deal. I want you to put together a full marketing proposal." As the words sunk in, relief washed over him like a wave crashing upon a shore. "Thank you." With that, he left the office, adrenaline coursing through his veins. For the first time in ages, hope blossomed within him. This was his moment, a chance to reclaim his identity and prove his worth. In the days that followed, he dedicated every waking hour to crafting an exceptional proposal. He immersed himself in research, gathering insights and strategies, piecing together the project like a puzzle. It was exhilarating and exhausting, the thrill of creation pushing him forward. He often worked late into the night, fueled by coffee and determination. He recalled the time he had faced rejection before, reminding himself that persistence was key. Finally, the day of the presentation arrived. He stood outside the conference room, taking a deep breath as butterflies danced in his stomach. This was it, the moment he had worked so hard for. When he walked into the room, he was met by a table of executives staring expectantly at him. Hargrove reclined in his chair, arms crossed. It felt like 1,000 eyes were piercing through him. "Let's see what you've created," Hargrove said, pulling his gaze back to him. He began his presentation, passion lacing every word as he explained his plans. He outlined how the company could leverage social media, engage with consumers, and create impactful content that resonated. The energy in the room shifted as he spoke. He could feel the executives warming up to his ideas, but then came a critical question. One of the executives asked, a skeptical look etched on his face. Every innovation carries risks, but we'll implement metrics to track our progress. We can pivot quickly if we need to, adjusting our approach to ensure success, he replied confidently. As he addressed concerns and responded to questions, the tension began to lift. This was no longer an interrogation. It felt like a collaboration, a connection being forged between him and the team. When he finally concluded, silence enveloped the room. Anxiety gripped him once more, a tight knot in his stomach. Would they see the value he saw? Hargrove broke the silence first, a slight smile creeping onto his lips. Impressive work. His heart raced as relief flooded his veins. Absolutely. Weeks turned into a flurry of activity as he integrated into the company. The marketing campaign launched, and results began to pour in. Engagement soared, new clients signed on, excitement rippling through the organization. For the first time in a long while, he felt alive, revitalized. Each small win fed his growing confidence and solidified his place within the team. One afternoon, feeling particularly victorious, he found himself passing by the hostess from the restaurant. She was at work, now managing a bustling crowd, her demeanor crisp and professional. Recognition sparked in her eyes as she locked gazes with him. She said, momentarily surprised, "Yep, it's me," he replied, a smirk playing on his lips. "I am sorry for turning you away that day." She stuttered, embarrassment creeping onto her face. "It's all right," he said, waving it off. "Everyone has their moments." As he walked away, a sense of pride flooded over him. He had turned rejection into motivation. Every challenge had propelled him to where he now stood. The thrill of it washed over him, reminding him how far he had come since that fateful day. But then, as he settled into his new routine, an email notification caught his attention. It was from Hargrove. Curiosity sparked. He opened it, but confusion washed over him as he read the final words. "We need to talk. This may affect your position." Suddenly, his heart dropped, and the thrill of his journey twisted into anxiety. What could this mean? Was he losing everything he had fought for? The uncertainty clung to him like a fog, leaving him teetering on the edge between success and potential failure. In that moment, he realized that the story was far from over. Just when he thought he'd turned the corner, another challenge loomed. He stood at a crossroads, but somewhere deep down, a spark ignited. He wouldn't back down. He would fight again. He would push through whatever awaited him, because this time he was ready. The question now was, would he be able to turn this unexpected twist into another chapter of triumph, or would it be the beginning of a new struggle? Only time would tell.